yeast. Very important. So we use fresh yeast at Bread Ahead, and it works faster. It has a more, so to a baker, when we smell this, we're like, nice. To other people, they don't think it's so nice. It looks like tuna, smells nothing like tuna, tastes nothing like tuna, but we believe it has a more robust flavor. But more importantly, it works faster, and you use it the same way. So fresh yeast is fresh yeast. Anywhere you go in the world, it's fresh yeast, and you use it the same way. And that brings me to dried yeast. So dried yeast, this is what you probably are using in this class today. Whenever you see fresh yeast in any recipe, you can easily substitute it with dried yeast, but be careful, it's stronger than the fresh yeast. So they have taken all the moisture out of this to make it more shelf stable, and you need half the quantity whenever you're baking. So one of the reasons we don't like using dried yeast is because they vary so widely between brands. And you always have to check the packet instructions whenever you're baking, okay? This one is just labeled dried yeast. So typically you'd find it called dried yeast. Sometimes they may have instant dried yeast somewhere at the bottom. They also may have active dried yeast at the bottom. You want to read that carefully. With the instant, you can add it to your flour. With the active, you have to rehydrate. So you have to add that to water. So they work slightly differently from one another. We also have something called rapid rise dried yeast. With that one, just as the name signifies, it rises very quickly. So you want to keep an eye on it, especially if you've been baking previously. So if you've been baking, you use instant dried yeast. You know, it takes you about an hour for your dough to rise, and you leave your dough for an hour after using rapid rise. Your dough will be out of the bowl. So always check the packet instructions whenever you're using dried yeast. Now, after saying all those lovely things about the fresh yeast, the only downside is that it has a short shelf life. So it is a living organism, single-celled organism that belongs to the fungus family, and after 2 weeks, it dies. So it's not commercially viable for you to keep buying fresh yeast at home, and that is why you're replacing it with dried yeast.